This week, Nintendo's ex-indie head goes indie. Maybe he should stop by the Ohio Game Dev Expo because we hear the Behemoth laid a golden egg. Stick around through these Neverending Nightmares because you never know what you'll be dealt in the hand of fate. This madness and more in episode 22 of the Indie Game Riot. Indie Game Riot! Hey everybody, this is JaShinYa, and this is episode 22 of the Indie Game Riot. Yes, we're a little bit hungover from our 21st, but you know, who isn't after 21?
Exactly.
I was plastered, I gotta say. But yeah, how's things going for you guys?
I think everybody's really tired.
Yeah, this has been a ridiculous week, I think, for just everyone. But
Rev was explaining stuff before the recording of the show, and it went on for a while. I'm like, I understand these words. I know exactly what you're doing. So
that was only up till like noon on Saturday.
Explain in layman's terms.
In layman's terms.
Yeah, I was going to try to condense the abridged version.
Condense my epic story. Yeah. Okay, so I started my new job 3 weeks ago, and it's been a blast. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and everything's going great. This weekend was a major project. We were replacing the entire networking infrastructure for a community service organization, and that's all I can really say about it. Yeah, so we're taking out all of their network, replacing all of the hardware, putting it back in, re-networking everything. Cool, not a big deal. In the last week, starting Monday at 5:30 a.m., I have not gotten to bed before 1 a.m. and gotten awake at 5:30 a.m. every single day, and I put in just under 80 hours of billable work, not even counting time, like my lunch breaks that I work through anyways.
Making that paper, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So, fortunately, this is one of those rarity-type occasions. Like, this has been a big, huge project that's been needed to be done for years. And they fired their old IT guy. We took over, and hey, it's done. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to sleep tonight.
Well, I gotta say, it seems like you're actually enjoying your new employers.
Oh, I'm having a blast. Really... These guys are a lot of fun. It's a little bit there's occasions where it's a little bit awkward, just because I'm kind of it's the new guy syndrome, and B I'm not necessarily the average human being.
I just imagine like, so how are you liking it here? How you liking it here, Rev? Okay. Like, you're just, like, twisting your foot in the dirt, like...
No, it's not quite that bad. You
should watch my podcast!
Why do you make him sound like Herbert the Pervert?
Yeah, I don't know.
You should watch my podcast.
I got some candy in the bag.
Get your maquillage over here.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, though.
No, it really is, and I got some of the best feedback that I've gotten, because I make it a policy for the first, little while to ask, hey, any concerns, anything like that, blah, 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 just to make sure I'm meeting their lines in case there's any miscommunications. And the owner of the company gave me probably some of the best work feedback I've ever heard, and that was, how did you say it? I am pleasantly surprised at your level of skill. We hired you based on the level that you interviewed at, and I think that your actual skill that you're demonstrating is exponentially better and higher skilled than what you interviewed at. And I was like, oh, cool.
Did you get that in writing, like an email?
Yeah, that's good. That's good reference right there if you ever need it. Yeah, how about you?
How about you, Tech?
Yeah, you had a crazy weekend, sir.
I had a crazy weekend. I actually took part in Frederick County's 72-hour film fest this weekend that started Thursday night, officially at 9 o'clock, and ended last night at 9 o'clock. And I really wish it would have ended sooner, but as people who may have been part of film fests like that would know, things rarely go according to plan. The theme this year was Hollywood movie mashups, so that nobody could write a script beforehand. Obviously, that's how these things go. You're given criteria and you make a thing completely new in 72 hours. And we randomly got Shawshank Redemption meets Thelma and Louise.
I feel like that's actually pretty.
You know, everyone was
lucky.
like, "Oh no!" And then we were like, "Wait a second! 2 people breaking out of prison, 2 people on a road trip from the cops.
Right.
This is perfect."
Yeah, that's an easy combination.
Exactly. And it really was. The writing's pretty good. I'll probably have links for you guys next week because the world premiere debut is next Friday.
All the stars are going to be there.
Yeah,
at the Chinese Dragon Theater, wherever the hell it's called.
It came to culmination the last night. So basically, Friday and Saturday, my team likes to do shoot days, and then Sunday is basically me to edit everything. Now, I'm usually behind a camera. This year I was behind a camera and editing, and I usually edit. And we weren't able to get a very important shot on Saturday because we lost light and we lost an actor because of work. So what happened was everyone else except for me woke up, drove out 45 minutes to the location up north, at like 7 in the morning, got the footage, came back. I am editing it. I get to this point of editing. I went to bed that night at like 4 in the morning because I was throwing stuff together before Sunday. I get to that part in editing about noon, and I realized that they didn't turn the mic on for every single shot they got.
Oh, God.
So all of a sudden, I have the most important shot that
voiceover.
Everybody. Well, see, that's the beauty of it. Is that this entire thing had voiceover because of Shawshank Redemption. You know, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, with the narration.
With Morgan Freeman narrating. And this is the only time that...
Who played Morgan Freeman? That's why.
My girlfriend actually did.
I would pay money if your girlfriend was able to, like actually do Morgan Freeman's voice.
No,
like,
she...
Hey, Tech, how are you? And then...
Yeah.
We broke out of blah, blah, blah.
But in the end,
I can't quote that.
It all sort of worked out. Like we rewrote that whole last part. She got all the voice acting done that day, which, like, for someone who'd never voice acted before, did a fine job. Josh and I coming from voice acting backgrounds, you know that, like, in my head there are things that I had issues with, but I was like, we don't have time. I love you. It's fine. It's okay. We're fine. So I finished the edit. It's 6 minutes and 15 seconds exactly, and then we have to render, and at this point it's 8 o'clock, and the turn-in time is 9, and it is 20 minutes away.
You're like, it's like rendering. It's like you have like an hour to render. It's like an hour and 1 minute.
Yeah, exactly. So we turned it in with 5 minutes to spare, and the entire weekend culminated in us running down the street to turn in this film. And I think it turned out a lot better than anybody was expecting, especially given 72 hours. And I got a good night's sleep last night, and I'm going to get one tonight. And so Rev and I are basically in the same boat. So enough about me. Josh, what have you been up to?
I don't even want to talk about my week. My week is like, you guys have just had busy weeks. My week's just been crap.
Just dealing with stupid people? Just
dealing with stress and stupid, like, and I work in, like, retail, grocery store, customers, and...
Grocery stores are the worst.
Holy hell, people are stupid and rude and self-entitled. Just, I don't even...
And they all just happened to stop by that week.
Well, Friday was terrible. Friday was terrible. And, you know, Whizfish Casey, he works with me, actually, and it was like... I don't know. Friday was so bad that we actually started snapping at each other just because it was like in the bad moods. It was like that bad.
Like that was happening at 72, but I mean, this is 6 people that have been crammed in my house for like 2 days, and it's like
But these, like, I had, like, there's this lady that comes up. We call her the fresh lady. And because not every day, but every time she comes in, she goes up to the counter. What'd you get in fresh today? And, like, really, like it's, like, the seafood especially, because it's seafood and meat, the department I work in. Yeah. And it's, like, everything is fresh. It's fresh fish. You don't want fresh, there's the frozen section over there. You go get the frozen. This is fresh. Yeah. But she doesn't believe you. She's like, get it out of the back. I'm like, no. But she's a really self-entitled, and she came over to me asking about a roast. And it was like, I don't know. She asked me a question about a roast, and I'm in the middle of explaining it to her. And she's like, okay. And then, like, you know, like, cuts me off mid-sentence and, like, kind of gives me the hand, you know, the 90s hand, like, talk to it.
Yeah.
And, like, the really self-entitled. Yeah, I just, like, in the middle of the sentence, I was like, really? I don't know. I was, like, straight out ignoring. And I'm usually really good with customer service. But I was, like, straight out rude to people.
I am not to be flexed with, little dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty good with it, but this is, like, I was, like, straight out. It wasn't rude. It was just, like, this is what they deserve. Like, the crap I was. Anyway, it was just bad.
Is this a new moon?
I don't know.
So you were ready to like just start rioting in the store, right?
That's not the one we're going into though. But you know what I could have taken of.
I looked at that. I'm sorry. I tried to inject the wrong transition.
No. You can't save that. You can't save that transition. So we're just gonna move on to Indie's injection.
Are you bored with the same old games?
Yeah.
Why, then give yourself an Indie News injection.
Thanks, Indie Games.
You've played Alien Hominid. You crashed some awesome castles in Castle Crashers.
I definitely have crashed castles.
Crashed castles.
Says
and now the Behemoth is going to start funding some of your favorite games, possibly in the near future. Future awesome games funded by the Behemoth. Yes, they are not a publishing company, but they are willing to give loans to game developers who are making games that they believe in.
And just to point out, it's not really it's a loan, but it's not a loan in traditional sense because they don't have to pay interest.
No, and not only that, but they aren't a investor which needs IP rights or
return on investment.
Exactly. It's basically, we have a lot of money. Use some for a little bit and get it back to us. It's like a car. They're basically giving away cars to indie devs. It's like, make sure to get it back by 9. But I think this is awesome because, like, we've talked about Behemoth probably like we've talked about them on a lot of episodes, whether we're talking about a game that they've released or just using them as a jump off point. Exactly.
Well, because they're one of the original, like, the indie game boom. They're one of the originals that came out of that with Castle Crashers. And
they really they talk about how they define themselves as indie because they funded it themselves. Even though they were on consoles, and when that happened, the question of
well, no, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing with what was it? Supergiant Games. They were published by WB Games, but that doesn't mean that they gave them money to do it. Like the way, and they didn't like use their resources. The only thing that they used from those publishers was their connections.
Yeah,
exactly. That's really all it is.
And also with, as another example of somebody that we've talked about, and two, Jay Tholen being picked up by, oh crap, I've totally...
Devolver Digital.
Devolver Digital with Dropsy the Clown.
But that's not, that's that publisher in itself is indie, because that's not really...
Exactly. But this isn't quite, they aren't a publisher. They're giving money to devs.
They're just the nice guy next door.
Yeah, they're just doing... They're doing what everybody does on IndieGoGo or Kickstarter for a game, except with a much larger amount of money.
Right.
They're like those guys who donate $10,000 to a project to get cool stuff, except they're really only asking for their investment back.
Right. Now, does it say... I didn't see, because I just kind of skimmed through the second half of it. But did they say like what happens if for some reason the game doesn't get that return? Like say, just speaking, like say they need $100,000 for their game for whatever reason, and they gave it to them because they were like, we believe in your game, but then they don't get that back because not that they don't give it back, but like the game doesn't get that in profit.
I really wish I knew the answer to that, and like I'm currently even like searching the like the information on it, like with like the search like return, or like pay back. It's funding. The eyebrow eventually had to pay back. I didn't really see structure is described as being very loose. Checks are cut to the recipient developer, and the amounts are paid back when they get the money. So it's sort of like, I guess you do. I mean, they do have a loose contract. Yeah, it's sort of like if credit cards didn't screw you, basically.
Well,
said no one ever.
I think something that they're doing that's going to help mitigate that risk, as it were, is the fact that they are they're not accepting people that approach them.
Well, yeah, they're reaching out. Right?
Yeah, they're the ones that are reaching out. They are also, not necessarily going to go to somebody who has a tech demo and say, "Hey, here's $80,000. Finish making your game."
Yeah, it looks like they're taking developers who have a game that is going to be made and saying, "Make this faster."
Now,
or you guys are nearing completion. Make it quick.
Here's to finish it.
And I'm sure they have connections of themselves, just like a publisher, because I mean they're like I said, being one of the originals through the indie game boom, and they got published technically through Microsoft because on Xbox Live and all of that sort of stuff. But so I'm sure they have plenty of connections. But right now they're currently funding a specific game, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
They're currently funding a specific game, correct?
Yes. They are funding Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, which is a...
Space bunnies.
Yeah, it's basically two space astronauts things in this globe where you have to do a bunch of stuff and work together to fend off a bunch of aliens trying to attack you and make sure that all the things... It's kind of like... It's hard to explain. Like, we might talk about it later.
I thought that was... which... Maybe, because I was reading actually a different thing, because I was looking at Asteroid Base.
Oh, Asteroid Base.
Or is that the...
Asteroid Base is the
That's the studio. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's why I got confused. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it sounds... Considering that the game is basically Asteroid Base.
Yeah, that's why I was confused.
Yeah, and that game looks really cool. Like, in general, I was watching him like, this looks like a game I would play. Yeah, I would play that game. And also, like, I feel like we talk about Double Fine, we talk about the big indie devs and how with Double Fine...
It's weird saying that's like an oxymoron, big indie devs.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, we trust, at least I trust, that they aren't dumb. And obviously they aren't dumb because they got to where they are now because of them not being dumb. So
they know how it works at this point.
And on top of that, like, there's always a risk in investment. Like, the Bloomberg channel is on in my house at some point during the day, almost every single day, and all of the ads on Bloomberg are basically make sure that you understand that there is risk in buying stock and all this other stuff. And like, yeah, there's a risk in investing in anything, and obviously that's clear. And the reward for Behemoth here isn't great, other than that, they are funding awesome games.
And they're helping indie game community.
It's the helping of the community. It's the fact, like, this is I see it very much as this is their way of giving back to everybody that gave so much to them. Not necessarily like we talk a lot about the community and how everybody, not everybody, but the vast majority of people are, interconnected and want to help each other out. And that's how you end up with people that are, technically direct competitors doing, helping each other out with coding on their games and stuff like that. So I think this is a more direct method of doing so, and I want to give him props. I have to give him
Well,
props.
and being us who we are, like that's kind of like what Indie Game Riot has been about this whole time. It's one of our main goals is to do that sort of thing, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, we care, and this shows that they care about not only them and where they sit in the indie scene, but the indie scene itself, where it's going, how is it going to grow, and how can we help that move along?
Right, just we're able to relate, and that's why I can appreciate this even more. And just to point out too, their connection with Newgrounds, because Tom Falk, co-founder of Behemoth, founder of Newgrounds.com, Newgrounds hosts all those free games, and a lot of indie devs get their start there with web games. And they mentioned in the article Closure that they kind of helped out before the whole thing was official.
Yeah.
And Closure was actually one of those games that were originally on Newgrounds, I believe.
I feel like I have that game. Did we talk about Closure?
Not on the show, but it's on Steam, so it's possible that you have it.
Let's see.
But anyway, there's a lot of games like that on Newgrounds that I'm sure, if you're a Newgrounds web dev, that's probably a very good place to get noticed because Tom Falk.
And we are not being paid by them, and we don't have any just sort of transparency. Like we don't have any like Josh and I have talked to Tom Falk. Like Josh has had shout outs, but like we aren't getting paid by them.
There's no sponsorship there.
No.
But we mention them because, again, they love the indie game community and everything like that. So we love just mentioning that because that's what it's all about. But
we're actually brought to you by Domino's, located in Ohio.
Right.
Located in Ohio.
Located in Ohio. And let's just hope that... I know that what you're doing, but I just want to say,
but I'm bad at improv, so I'm just going to say no.
No, that's not because I just want to say that any indie devs out there that happen to get noticed by the Gold Egg Project, please don't take advantage of it, and please don't try and screw them over because they have, like you said, loose rules for payback, and I just hope that doesn't backfire for whatever reason. I'm assuming they have good lawyers that get it all wrapped up, but I just don't want to see this get taken advantage of like that. Yeah. Now, speaking of Ohio,
nice segue.
Yeah, speaking of thanks, man. Speaking of Ohio Game Dev Expo is coming to a town, and by town I mean Ohio.
Ohio's a state.
Yeah, that's in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, jerk. Jeez. October 24th through the 26th. So that's a weekend. If you're in a game dev or fan of game devs or just want to be creeper, go to Ohio Game Dev Expo sometime that weekend and check it out. There's a lot of speakers and games that you can play. And let's see, I'm trying to think who is there. I had the list
Beeson?
up. Yeah.
Mark Fitzpatrick.
You know what?
I'm trying to help you so we don't sound retarded.
Here we go. Scott Foe, DB Cooper. I noticed the name and I was like, wait, that's not real, but that's a voice actress or voice actor. Excuse me. Howard So, Mike Geig. Some of these names, man. Jason Conway, and if you recognize any of these names, jump up in the air in celebration. If not, then just play the games that are there.
They're people. They're people that do stuff.
And know that we're jumping up and down in celebration.
Yeah,
right.
Seriously.
And if any of these people want to come on the show, if you're listening, but but basically, it's just a good time for game devs to show off their games to each other, and it's really, I think it's mostly about networking with each other.
Yeah. Well, there's also a lot about they have some game tournaments. They've got talks on like 3D modeling.
Right. There's audio demo derby, so there's workshops that you can get into if you're. That one's by Sean Beeson. Microsoft Workshop, Unity Workshop. A lot. Who were we talking to on Twitter recently?
Oh, that's Serious.
Yeah, Serious. The guy behind the game Serious is talking about switching his engine over to Unity, and if he goes to Ohio Game Dev Expo, he can check it out. and try and get into that workshop there.
Yeah, they have talks about designing better games, working with your strengths and weaknesses, basically
Getting
just
your game on Steam.
Exactly.
Also, law in the games industry, probably a good idea to like. It sounds boring, but we've heard so many times about, especially with like Kickstarters and things like that. And remember that whole thing with the Yogscast, their indie game. We had like a big discussion about that as far as like the law is concerned, who gets screwed over, who doesn't, all that sort of stuff. Crowdfunding. There's going to be a discussion on crowdfunding. Obviously, a big part of the indie games community is crowdfunding nowadays, as is Steam.
I was going to say, Rev, make sure you see that one. Oh, wait, that's IndieCade. Never mind.
Yeah, you're going to IndieCade. Yeah, so in game tournaments, and you talked about there's obviously exhibitors and merchandise and things like that, just like any other con. So I thought about going to this, but that's one of those things that, being poor kind of sucks.
It's far enough. If you can cover gas and whatnot, I can buy you a weekend pass. I'm pretty sure I'd be.
Well, gas is what sucks, and then that's also like missed work hours. That's all that sort of stuff.
They've also got like Google Game Developer Group, Grimm Brothers, Open Realms, and a lot of other awesome exhibitors out there. So if you're in the Columbus area and want to check this out, you will not be disappointed with the amount of stuff that you can do. And let me just tell you, being in Columbus recently this summer, there isn't a lot there, but like
you're gonna be bored as shit outside of the con.
This is like like if you just look at pictures of where this is happening, it is 320,000 square feet.
It is a big time
of just.
Yeah,
Ohio.
And I'm pretty sure the Behemoth's going to be there because it's on their calendar in Newgrounds on Newgrounds.com. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be there. So we were just talking about the Behemoth, and if you want to meet Tom Falk, he'll probably be there. And I'm knocking stuff over.
So price-wise, this one is for the weekend pass. It's $60 if you are a student, which does require a valid student ID. You get a discount down to $45, and if you're only going for Sunday, it's $30. So.
Or if you want to just go to the kickoff party for some weird reason, that's $15.
Yeah, and that is October 24th through the 26th, obviously 2014.
Right.
And as of the recording of this, it is 17 days and 19 hours away.
Yeah.
Whenever this episode is released.
Who knows? Because today is Monday, and that's usually when it's released, but, it's all screwed up.
Sorry, guys. The episode's drunk.
Yeah. But you know who should show up at the Ohio Game Dev Expo? I mentioned in my introduction.
The Germans?
No.
No.
No one wants the Germans there. Just kidding, Germans, anyone listening.
The other side of the axis.
Yeah. Dan Adelman, right?
Yes, the former head of Nintendo's indie development segment. Basically, he was the guy. If you know your history or recent history, he was the guy that Nintendo hired to interface with indie developers to try and draw them into Nintendo. And Dan has this very amazing trait, and that is he's not gonna lie to you, and that kind of got him in trouble with Nintendo. There was a couple of incidents, is the best way of putting it, where
and there goes Rev. Well, go ahead.
But yeah, so Dan Alderman, sorry that we lost Rev there, guys. But he's going to be working alongside developer Tom Happ to provide marketing related and business related sides to the Axiom Verge development, I believe. Mm-hmm.
PlayStation exclusive, unfortunately. Not that we have a problem with PlayStation, but we like to see games spread across all consoles and operating systems. But that's besides the point here.
Right, and I just think it's awesome that yes, he was like he has experience with indie development because he was part of Nintendo's connections with indie devs, and I feel like he has a lot to give to the community, especially outside of Nintendo's sort of, like, we all know Nintendo. They like making the same stuff, and they do it well. But now that he's outside of that possibly restrictive environment, I'm not going to speculate on that. I think he'll be able to bring a lot to the table and bring a lot to, the indie gaming with, his knowledge.
Well, and I'm sorry, I just came back for some reason. Somebody kicked my router. So, did we talk about who he's going to be working with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You didn't mention about why he got in trouble with Nintendo.
Yeah. Okay, that's where I was off. So he was asked several pointed questions, and his response was bluntly honest. It was something along the lines of, if I'm remembering correctly, would this be worthwhile for me to pursue, going through your company, being Nintendo? And his response was basically, well, it could be, but most likely it's not going to be.
But this is Nintendo, and Nintendo hasn't had an original idea since 1980.
Well,
wow.
I wouldn't disagree with you on that, but that's probably for another show. I think that sort of like realistic approach to things might be good in the indie scene, because you have a lot of, like, here on Indie Game Riot, we like to, especially in our Starting the Riot segment, we like to focus on things that like we care about and we think are actually genuinely good. And usually they're successes, and sometimes, we've had a few fall through, and, we've told you about those. But I think if somebody's in the industry saying, no, this isn't how it is, this is how it is, and if that can make good games, it's going to help everybody, even if it steps on a few people's fingers.
Yeah.
I personally like the bluntness. And again, we talked about, transparency, and I know this isn't anything to do with game journalism or anything like that, but it's the fact that even in companies themselves, it's nice to know that guys like, you know what, you're probably not the best fit. As much as we'd like to take your money, you should probably take it elsewhere, because I care about the indie game community and I want you to be successful.
And that happens everywhere. Like, I graduated, I didn't actually graduate with her. I was friends with a girl in high school who went on to go to a very prestigious New York art school. She was a really good animator, and she got to talking with a bunch of people in Disney, and they basically told her, like, if you were born 10 years ago, you would have a job at Disney. But the direction that the company is going, we can't hire you. And, like, people like that are needed. They are some of the most important people, because, yes, you have the ideas people, and you have the people who circle jerk around, like, ideas and games and oh, your code is so good, no, your code is so good, and all this stuff. And then you have the people who are talking sense, and those are the people who get games done and get games good. Sometimes.
I like that terminology. Good job.
Yeah.
And one last thought too is that it's nice. We talk about it all the time, and not that we want AAA games to like disappear, because they're awesome, but it's still nice to see that the indie game community is like the place to be, and that AAA people are going to the indie game community because they want to, they want their freedom, their creative freedom, and everything like that. So nice to see that happen.
And we also touched on this a little bit earlier with games moving to consoles, and we know that Nintendo is a very console-based company, almost like exclusively a console-based company, if I'm not mistaken. And
console and handheld, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So even though everybody on this show maybe not Rev loves playing his Xbox, but even though we like seeing games on PC because that's how we generally like playing them, having the outreach to consoles, because a lot of people own consoles. Like, I don't know a single person who doesn't own a console. And
I still have my original NES.
Exactly.
Nice. That's worth some money, man.
And if we can reach them through any means possible, I am all for it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that kind of ties in. What I would love to see is Nintendo start publishing a lot of their games, especially their indie side games, on the Ouya.
Well, yeah, I think Ouya is definitely a platform that still has yet to reach its full potential, and I think it just needs that one hit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Super Pixalo.
It need anything. It could be. I don't know. It needs that one hit to get that attention for Ouya, and then people are gonna be like, "This is the indie game console here, son."
Yeah.
And they'd be starting Riot, right?
Yeah.
Aha! See, that's how you do a transition, sir. Starting the Riot. And this week on Starting the Riot, we have a very scary game. I don't know why I said it like that. But anyway, it's called Neverending Nightmares. Neverending Nightmares is an adventure game, but it's not really point and click. It's more of an experience, I would say. And it's not really so much. I wouldn't say it's so much of a game in a traditional sense of like challenging, like, oh, I got to get through here. There's enemies in it, but they're not the most challenging enemies. It's more of a like, how would you? It's just like an
no
experience the environment. With the audio in this game is ridiculous. Like it messes with your head. And there are a few times. It's like there's an enemy. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an enemy towards the end because I've seen this game the whole way through to the end. There's an enemy at the end of the game that freaks me out, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's like legitimately creepy, but and it's actually scary as far as like, other than creepy, it's scary because it's hard to get away from.
Oh my God.
And I'll say that there's 3 enemies in this game, and they do progressively get harder because the first one's pretty damn easy to get past. The second one is a little bit challenging. The third one just like out of nowhere, and you're like, oh shit! And then you have to, without spoiling anything. But probably the main point of this game is to engross you in the atmosphere. What's really unique about it is the art style, because they use, what do you call it, cross-hatching? Is that what that's called?
It is what it's called.
It's black and white except for a few things, like the things that are like points of interest are in color, and blood is in color, very very bright red color. And other than that, it's black and white, and they use to differentiate between light and dark areas, cross-hatching. So like shadowed dark areas will be just like crotch-hatched. Crotch-hatched?
Cross-hatched.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Freudian slip.
It looks terrifying.
Cross-hatched. The hell out of. So it's just like all over the place. And it's very. What do you remember those books?
Choose Your Own Adventures?
Yes.
No, not the Choose Your Own Adventures. The books. It was like scary bedtime stories or something like that.
Stories to Tell in the Dark.
That one.
Yeah.
The art style reminds me a lot of like that.
I think the big difference is
very
that
gothic
a
and
lot of but it's very much more straight lines versus like scribbles or haphazardly done lines.
Right.
Like it's very straight. Everything is very like to the point. It's definitely sort of caricature-y, but like that doesn't take away from the fact that this game is like very like atmospherically.
It is very atmospheric, and I talk about the art, but then, like I said, the audio is insane. Like, if you make sure you play with headphones, and if you have really good headphones, use them, because you'll hear, like, you'll be creeping through the wherever you're at, because there's a few different settings and everything. You'll be creeping through, and then you'll just hear like this, like in the background. You'll be like, what was that? And then you're not sure if you want to run or if you want to hide, or if you're not even sure what's going on. Especially if you don't, like, I don't want to spoil anything because you don't know, what is bad thing and what's just bullshit. But yeah, basically, and just to give you kind of like a tidbit of what the developers are saying. By the way, this is developed by Infinitap Games. I should have mentioned that.
I was going to.
Yeah, just to give you, it is on PC, Mac, and Linux, I believe.
Yep. And
they're saying this is a psychological horror game inspired by the developer's actual battle with mental illness, which is an interesting take. And it kind of harkens, like that whole thing kind of harkens back to the whole disability game jam that we talked about some episodes ago, which is kind of cool that they, not even just that, it's just brings the whole subject of how games can translate experience, life experiences with people who may not understand them very well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's cool. And then basically you're taking the role of a guy named Thomas who wakes up from a terrible nightmare, and only to find that he's still in a nightmare. So you're just waking up from a nightmare into another nightmare into another nightmare until the end. And there are actually, I believe, 3 endings that you can get. There, after a certain point, there are branching paths depending on the decisions that you make, which is pretty cool. And basically, you're just trying to get through from one end from one nightmare to the other without dying. And there are some pretty disturbing cutscenes also, so not for the faint of heart. And actually, if you go on their Steam page, some of the one cutscene in particular is actually one of their images, and it's pretty ugh.
So basically what you're saying is I should have somebody else play this game while I just sit there with headphones on and listen to it.
Or you can play it yourself and record it, because I will watch it.
You'll watch me put my fist through my laptop.
And kill your roommate's snake again.
Yeah.
For the new listeners, that was an earlier episode that you can probably find. This game also got an Escapist Best of 2014 nomination. They were at the Indie Mega Booth in PAX Prime, both in 2013 and 2014. And so if that doesn't make you want to play this terrifying game...
they were recognized on BigSushi.fm, which is a cool indie site, and also they have a 79 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is actually a pretty good score.
If you listen to Metacritic.
Right. If you listen to Metacritic. Anyway.
If you care.
I think it's a really cool game. Even if you don't like horror games, you're probably not going to like it because it's a horror game. But I think it's really good, and I think
$50 on Steam.
It's not a bad price.
No,
it is a little bit short, but I think the experience is worth it, personally.
Definitely. And this is on Starting the Riot.
Yeah.
Yeah? What about it?
Never mind.
Well, as Tekino gets his mind together, I think we should move on to a little something we call Peep Show.
Please give all your attention to Early Access.
And in our naughty piece of the show, we have an awesome game. Imagine you're taking Magic the Gathering and crossing it with, say, the combat of God of War and Dungeons and Dragons, and you're throwing it all together, and what comes out is this amazingly orgasmic adventure. So we are talking tonight about Hand of Fate. Basically, you are facing a demon god thing or somebody who has magical cards, and he's kind of the dungeon master, and he lays out his cards in front of you, and your character moves from card to card, and that dictates the path that you take through this adventure. And you get random stuff like, oh, you fell down a cliff trying to reach that piece of treasure, or not. It's all based on luck of the draw. And while you're going through this adventure, you also get to draw cards that build your deck. So if you want to add more food so that you can move squares without taking a hit point penalty, you can. If you get gold or, get an upgraded weapons, things of that nature. It's a lot of fun. Just going through that, what little bit I have was fun. And then you get to a combat encounter, and the game changes tempo entirely, and it goes from this we're laid out playing across a table and drops you into an arena with your enemies, and all of the cards that you have applied in your hand, your shield, your sword, and magical armor, etc., all drops down onto you, and it gets added to your character's your character, and then you go into combat, and it's very hack and slash combat, and then as soon as combat is over, it loads back out to the hand and the table, and it's a lot of fun. Now I will say, this is being on the Peep Show, obviously this is a near alpha build. It's on Steam's early access, and it is by far one of the most interesting concepts that I have played.
It's probably I was gonna say it's probably one of the most unique games that we've had on Peep Show so far.
Yeah,
I love the D&D aspect of it, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I will say that this game feels, at least in the deck building aspect of it, it feels a lot like a deck building game called Dominion. If anybody has played the game Dominion, and it's a very, take it or leave it sort of game where I've talked to people where either they love it or they hate it. And I'm one of those people where if I see a box of Dominion, I'm like, I need to play this. Who wants to play Dominion with me? Dominion is the best game ever. Here, pick your cards. Do this, do that. And on top of that, I love D&D. I'm a dungeon master for people. This takes, I think, the best elements of both, where you're building a deck and you're making yourself powerful and you're going through this, world against a larger-than-life individual like a DM who controls all of fate, all of your fate. And then all of a sudden, all the boring combat of D&D, for those of you who have never played D&D, D&D is a game where a 6-hour walk through a forest takes 5 minutes, and a 5-minute combat takes 5 hours.
Right.
So, this makes the combat quick, entertaining, and if you like deck games, you'll like this game, and if you like hack and slash games, you'll like this game. Like, who doesn't like either of those games? I
do. I do actually. I mean, obviously, it's like you said, it's an early access, so you have to assume that they're going to be adding new features and whatnot.
Yep.
But one of the things that I'm hoping they're going to add, because actually two things. One, I think it needs to be optimized better because it was really slow in loading.
You're not alone in that. That was actually something I was going to talk about.
Right.
This is very early access. Like, this is early access version 1.2. So it is not the most stable of builds. I actually had it crash on me twice while I was playing through some.
I didn't have any crashes. It was just the optimization.
I think probably what they're going for, not being a game developer, so I don't know how these sort of things play out, but I feel like they probably want to get core mechanics and things added into the game before they start being like, okay, where can we start cutting stuff off of the processes so that this thing can run smoothly. Right. But honestly, like, in terms of talking about making or breaking a game, that optimization is going to be key in this thing being worth the $25 price tag currently on Steam.
I'd find it hard to believe that they wouldn't address that issue. So, like I said, being early access. The second thing is, like you were mentioning, hack and slash combat. Like, it's cool. Hack and slash combat in any game is cool, but it gets old really fast. So I'm hoping that, because I went through one of their boss battles, and there's kind of a cool little pattern you could say to it, which kind of made threw a little bit of a difference in there. But for the most part, hack and slash gets old. So I'm hoping that they're going to add. I was
bored with all of the like the Arkham style combat that's getting really popular now. It sort of
they kind of try and do that, but it's not like really where it needs to be yet. It's not as smooth. Yeah, it's not smooth or polished. So it's hard to judge at this point being early access. But I think they not only do they need to smooth that out, but also add something in there other than the hack and slash, like maybe a puzzle or something, like in there.
So you can find treasure, because like a big point in D&D is you come to a room, it's empty, and then someone's like, I want to search for a secret door. Right. All of a sudden that comes in, you come into a room and you're popped into a room.
Right. So maybe
you have to search that room for puzzles to figure it out, and I think that'd be really cool.
Yes. So maybe they're going to plan on putting that in there, or maybe they'll listen to the show and put it in there. That would be cool, because we've had people take our suggestions, which is always a good feeling.
But if it's too much to add, and this is going back to a failure of indie games, because this is early access, indie games will die if there are a lot of really cool ideas that don't get implemented properly and turn the game into a development hell.
Yeah, take it, especially in a game like this where you're putting so many unique different mechanics into it. Roguelike, action RPG, deck builder. I mean, that's pretty ambitious. So don't get too ahead of yourselves. Like, if you have to, make it a complete game and polish it and everything like that, and then content updates and everything like that.
So here's a question for the two co-hosts here. This game gets polished, it gets released. Worth $25.
Oh, fuck, in a heartbeat.
$25.
In a heartbeat.
I would say yes, assuming that they it gets to where it needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to considering that Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers is literally just a card game and it costs $20, and this is adding D&D aspects and hack and slash aspects for another $5. Obviously, pick this up.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say at this point because it's you don't know where it's going to be in the end. But I think
when this is released, pick it up.
Yeah.
When it gets released, if you don't buy it on early access, and I understand not doing so if that's your cup of tea, but
at the same time, if you have $25 to just throw at them,
I would suggest
that's how they get.
But if you're listening to this, months or years down the road, and they've already released the game and it is polished,
or even just in beta,
don't like it, you can come back to this episode and then message me and be like, "No, you son of a bitch, that was a horrible game," and I will personally refund one person their $25.
You also have to think about it like this: like there are a lot of reviews on Steam that have 23 hours played, 19 hours played, 25 hours played, 11 hours played. Like that's a lot of time to be playing a game that costs $25. Like there are some games that are on Steam that are, and I go back to this a lot. If I can't play a game for a long amount of time and be happy with that game for just like a normal amount of time, like can I read a novel in this time? No, then I don't think I enjoyed this game enough for that price. And like 20 hours, like that's
I was gonna say 20
amount of time to play a game.
That was the one thing that probably tips it to the point of yes, buy it for $25 because you're talking about replayability, and you're talking like it's a deck building game and it's a roguelike, so those always like inherently have replayability because that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So and every time you play through it, you get new cards, and then it's a new game all over when you play again because you get new cards and it's randomized.
The only one of the hesitations that I do have with deck building card based games is the ease of adding DLC by the developer. Like, oh, you get
just as long as there's no microtransactions.
Well, exactly. Like microtransactions are one thing. I personally don't like DLC. And there are games that I've loved that have had sequels.
Free updates is where that.
Exactly. If you add free updates or even like additions to the game that
expansions.
Expansions again. Like make an expansion that's a little bit more expensive that adds a completely new element to the game or something like that. I will jump on. But if it's extra cards or like, oh, you can do this now and it's $2, I'm like, I don't care.
And they got a nice, just to point out, they have a nice voice actor for the guy that's like dealing out the cards and everything like that. And he's also the same voice actor in their little trailer.
Yeah, they better.
Yeah, it's a nice voice actor.
If they don't have a good voice actor for the DM, there's no point.
That is true. That's like the main thing. But maybe like another thing they could add is just maybe some more interactive. What do you call it? Why can't I think of NPCs? Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
But overall, definitely at least keep your eye out on it. If not, pick it up and play it. If you have a good computer that probably won't hopefully crash it.
And if you don't have $25,
well, before I do that, because we kind of skipped over a couple of things, I was letting you guys talk. Props to Defiant Development. I have not been this excited about a early access game in a while, and it is available on all 3 operating systems. So
absolutely, that is cool. Especially, that's hard to do. Is to make 3 different ports for it.
Yep.
As far as OSs go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as I was saying, if you don't have $25, you can also play the game that's in our free fun section because it's free.
It is going to drive you to madness.
Free fun.
This game started back in 2002. The movie that was released, I'm making this really
I was just gonna say, you're making it really dramatic, like you're
the Flash movie,
like
that
Morgan
was
Freeman on Planet Earth.
called Madness Combat, started taking the internet, at least this little site called Newgrounds, by storm. By 2003, the game Madness Interactive had hit your faces, and I can't tell you how many hours I sank into just sitting in the sandbox mode, shooting weird gray people with really weird, odd guns.
It's really weird how simplistic,
Yeah.
and how, but how, like, I don't know, it's
Complex.
Yeah,
Exactly. Especially
It's a dichotomy.
free.
yeah.
And then you fast forward 9 years to 2012, when Madness Project Nexus drops on your faces. And let me tell you, if you haven't played a Madness game for a while,
Did you say 2012?
Yeah, 2012. That's when it came out.
Project. Oh yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't played a Madness game since I have, you need to click on the link in the description and play this crazy shooting story game, because holy crap, this guy knows what he's doing. Everyone who is a part of this knows what they are doing. This is a formula that has worked for them. It is so good. And like you can play through a story or you can play through arenas, and it's like,
I think people are really excited about the arena mode in this.
yeah,
It seems like, because like
it's very fun.
they had a Kickstarter for Project Nexus 2, and it got funded. I think it was like a little over 50,000.
Yeah.
I think so. And people, I think the majority of people are like, "Oh my god, the arena mode!" It's weird because maybe it's just me, but arena mode in my head is just like, ugh, like it gets old.
I think what it is
But
a lot of people went through watching the Madness Combat videos,
yeah,
and then to sort of play through a story that was made by that was in the same universe might feel a little bit odd for some people. So instead, they're just like, oh, I wonder what that gun he was using. Oh, what does it do to this person? Oh, it blows his face off. Awesome. What does this do? Oh, it blows his legs off. He's crawling towards me. Oh, I'm going to stomp on his
I guess that's true. Like
the eye with the screwdriver.
I think, and that's what I like. I was gonna say, I'm not a fan of arena mode in just about any game, but this game, I think it could just be the complete carnage,
Yeah.
or it's one of those games that you could just play. Like you said, you were sinking hours into it, and you're not even thinking. You're just like, I must shoot gray things and see blood spurt out of their skulls.
And that's another thing. Like, this is mindless, mad violence.
This is madness. Okay,
But because they aren't like very human people, like, like that's a dude over there. He might have a family. No, he's just a gray dude with a cross on his face with a blobby body, and he's holding a gun. Shoot him in the head.
Although they do have Jesus.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Zombie Jesus.
Yep, zombie
So
Jesus.
if you're offended by that, maybe don't play it. But
Well, but I mean, like, come on, man. Like, it's a game where I feel like somebody who would get offended by Zombie Jesus would
probably
be
not play this in
offended
the first place.
significantly before that even shows up.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, and the music's so good. Oh, the music has always been good. So yeah, free fun, Madness Project Nexus, link in the description. Play it, play all the old ones, watch all the things. There's a reason there's a Madness Day.
Yeah, Madness Day on Newgrounds already passed, but it's cool. And so, like I said, their Kickstarter is already completed, but keep an eye out for Project Nexus 2, and they had the Kickstarter for that. So it's $50,000. It's going to be huge compared to the one that they didn't get any money for, except for maybe like some ad rev share.
Yeah,
But yeah, look out for it.
to be how many times was this played? I want to make sure that
Over 9 million.
Yeah. So considering that this game was played over 9 million times, that I guess that goes to show how much they how much they care about making a game that's fun, and B, what they might be able to do with $50,000. So
Good job, Crinkles and the Swain.
oh yeah.
Well, you know what this means. Since we're done talking about Project Nexus, you don't have to go to bed, but you can't stay here. What? Wait, that's not wrong. Anyway, that's not the lyrics. This is the end of the show. And the end of the show means, first of all, that those of you listening live, just so you know, on our recorded version, we have music playing in the background. And this week's featured musical artist is Jack O'Dell. And if you recognize that name, that's because Jack O'Dell was mentioned in our last episode. He's one of the programmers and the composer of Poncho, which is
Get that boss song on the album.
Absolutely.
Get it on the album.
Yeah.
I will buy it.
We'll link his Bandcamp page into our description in the YouTube video. Rev, you want to link his Bandcamp in the chat, and check it out there. And also, those of you in the live stream, we also have gameplay footage and bumpers and everything like that, and it's all edited nice and pretty and everything. But those of you who are listening to the recorded version, we of course have a live version on hitbox.tv/JaShinYa. If you know someone who is an indie game musician or an indie game dev or anything indie game related, let us know. Let them know to contact us, or if you are yourself one of those people, contact us and we could feature your work on our show because we love supporting the indie game community. Speaking of supporting the indie game community, we are also running an IndieGoGo campaign currently. If you would find it in your hearts to give us a little bit of help, $1 or more, anything helps at all, or even just sharing the link would be wonderful, because we are trying to improve the show for you and for the indie game community. The better show means that we can do more to help the indie game community and the games that we feature, and lays a foundation for the much bigger plans that we have in the future. And if you want to know what those are, just visit the IndieGoGo page because it's all explained there. To contact us, you can go... What, you going to say something?
I was just going to be like, we've got a lot of ways for that.
Yeah, a lot of ways to contact us. I thought you were going to interrupt me. I was like, okay, come on, bring it on.
I was Englishing this time.
For those of you listening live, you can check us out on youtube.com/JaShinYa Gaming, and contact us on there if you want to, through comments or message or whatever. Twitter.com, you can contact us at IGR Podcast. Reddit.com, we have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/Indie Game Riot. Facebook.com/IGR Podcast. Our website for the time being is igrpodcast.webs.com, which will hopefully change through IndieGoGo funding. That is one of our top priorities, to get a more functional website so we can get feature games more prevalently, I guess is the right words. And finally, you can contact us via email to JaShinYaGaming@gmail.com. Enable the Evolution, brought to you by Domino's. Anything else?
Other than that, next episode, hopefully Rev and I won't be so tired.
I'm planning on doing a lot of sleeping.
I am glad that the show is no longer hungover, because that was bullshit.
Now we have jobs.
Yeah. Well, anyway, say goodbye, gentlemen.
See you next time, guys.
Have a good one, folks.
Toodles.
He's basically like, I want you guys to say I am Groot, just like randomly throughout your show. And I'm like,
do we have to say it like him? Because I can do my best Vin Diesel, but it's probably not going to be like
it's
that.
not hard. Just punch yourself in the throat and shove a couple of packs of cigarettes down him.
I am Groot. I am Groot.
I'm Groot.
I am Groot.
I am Groot. Groot.
We're making like Rev jizz his pants over here. Come on.